Welcome back to Brashonomics. I'm Ben Brashin, and we were just discussing all the different reasons people may remodel, whether it's for a place to live or possibly just to add value to sell. Now, a lot of people may consult with a real estate agent on determining the value of moving or remodeling. Kalen Peters joins us, who in addition to Kingston Realty, Kalen has also purchased, rehabbed, and flipped many properties in King County for his own investment portfolio. Kalen, how are you?
Great. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm good. So, you hear Brooks over there talking about remodeling.
Manshells.
Yeah, you heard him talking about Manshells, really, didn't you?
Yeah. I left mine in my car. I'm thinking about, well, I borrowed my wife's, actually. You can't really tell the difference.
Between that and just a purse?
Exactly.
I'd agree with that. His looks kind of like a purse.
I know. It's unisexual.
It's a unisexual purse.
I know.
Well, Kalen, when people are looking to buy or remodel a house, how do you help guide them?
He's just taking away my commission on the next deal. I can see him writing it down. So we'll see. I like the mantle.
I like the mantle too, but it's one of those things you really have to decide if you are man enough to wear a mantle, right?
I guess. I guess I got some identity issues if I don't feel secure enough to carry that around, but We'll talk about that later.
We will get into that later.
In the round table. We do a little counseling session, group counseling.
How do you help people determine if they should buy or remodel a house?
Oh, neighborhood is a big factor. Brooks hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you have a house that you love, but the neighborhood stinks, the school district stinks, I mean, no matter how much money you dump into that house, it's not going to make you happy. If you leave and 3 doors down, you got 100 cars in the driveway and your kid's getting harassed and there's crime everywhere. That's not gonna, that's not gonna return the intangible investment that you make on your home. So I think neighborhood is huge.
Unless you put bars up.
Exactly.
In which case that could yield a high return.
Well, yeah, with all the whole Downton Abbey thing, I think everybody wants to make their house look like a castle anyway. So I don't know.
Throw some
I just said that, man. I'm going to have to go back and edit that out. I don't watch that show. So.
So if you find the house you want and you maybe don't, I guess if you're in the neighborhood you want, then you have that choice to remodel. But I think what you're saying is no matter how nice the granite countertops are, that isn't going to change your neighbors.
Exactly. Some people don't really care about that, about the neighborhood as much. Could be location and vicinity to where they work or where they have family. Another big aspect of whether they sell or remodel and stay there is, I mean, what is their the nut that they got to crack in order to sell? Like Brooks was saying, you do have a cost in order to sell. So if your break-even price is what it's going to cost you to sell, then that can help make your decision as well.
A lot of financial reasons.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you tend to think that people's goals over the next, several years really tie into that too? I mean, you mentioned schools, and if you're not in a good school district.
Yeah. I think you got to think a couple of years out. My folks, they bought their house in 1981, and they stayed there just until this last summer. And I think that was a generational thing. There was a lot of folks in that generation where you're buying a house at a high interest rate, and it wasn't to derive a profit, but inflation hit and property values increased, and I think there's been a passing of the torch, so to speak, and you're not having people buying houses as much for that long-term hold. I think my generation, the under 30s, especially first-time buyers, I mean, they're thinking in terms of 3 to 5 year chunks, and back in the 2005 through 2008, when it was really a craze to buy and anticipate a 10 to 20 year increase in some cases. I don't think people
10 to 20%,
yeah, 10 to 20%. I don't think people are really expecting those increases right now, but they're still thinking in terms of that 3 to 5 year hold. And yeah, because they're I started my career the beginning of this recession, and it's hard to think much further beyond the next couple of years with the economic climate it is and such. So,
in an economic climate like we are right now, which kind of seems to be on the mend, people are still cautious and conscious of the costs that are really associated with moving. How do you help people weigh those into the financial decision of remodeling versus moving?
I'm going to plug Brooks again. These really go hand in hand together. I have a client right now that's looking to sell a rental property of theirs, and they bought it in 2006, and although they've paid the loan balance way down, they will take a loss on the house. Now they could spend $50,000 and potentially sell it for a profit essentially of maybe 20 or 30,000 more than they bought it. But is it worth tying up that $50,000 that it's going to take to do that when they could spend 10 and just get it ready to, turnkey ready, and you're gonna maybe take a little bit of a loss, but you're securing that sale. You're getting that off the books, and we're talking about a property that's had a negative cash flow for a lot of years here. And then the other thing to consider is do you spend that much money, and do you put carpet, and do you put new carpet in? Do you put a lot of new finishes in when the person that's going to come in and buy it, they might hate it. They might change it up anyway. I mean, you'd almost rather have a dated house in a lot of the older neighborhoods in Seattle, an older house that's move-in ready that needs to be updated, rather than putting in medium grade new carpet or
putting lipstick on the pig.
Yeah, exactly. You see it with like a lot of Fannie Mae foreclosures. I mean, they'll go in and they'll spend $7,000-8,000 and put apartment grade finishes in a house. It's almost like you'd rather just have them clean it up and list it, because whoever's buying that is going to change it out anyway. It's just kind of throwing money down the tube.
Sure. So it sounds a little bit like, each situation is fairly unique, which is really why you end up working with somebody who can help you determine what's right for you. It's tough to, again, if you don't know what you don't know, it's tough to maybe make those decisions.
Exactly. I mean, that client that I was just referring to, it's not that, I mean, the money's there to do whatever they want. And there's not, you're choosing between a number of good decisions. The outcome might not even be that different. It's just what works best for them. In this case, they want to accomplish a quick sale and get out of it, as soon as they can. They just got their renters out of there. They want to put it on, and they don't want to deal with having contractors in there tearing the whole place up and having to manage that whole project. So, a lot of times, thank God you're picking the best, the top decision out of 3 decent decisions that all have favorable outcomes. I mean, we can all vouch for the market that hasn't always been the case. It's usually what's the
lesser of 2 evils.
Yeah, the lesser of 3 evils, or
3 or 5.
Exactly. So I think that is a positive thing when you talk about selling, especially in this market. If you're not underwater and you're not short selling, most of the time you're selling not to make a profit on your house, not just to get out of it, but because you have a great opportunity to, buy something with a better value or upsize or downsize in some cases to, a valuable condo or something like that. So.
Kalen Peters joins us, founder and owner of Kingston Realty. Kalen, so when you start talking about people and they're upsizing, they're downsizing, they're making the decisions of remodeling, it's really this kind of wants versus needs piece, right? I mean, you really have to almost dissect what somebody's trying to accomplish. And as you said, a lot of times there's, you can choose from 2 positive outcomes, but they can be pretty drastically different. I mean, moving up, remodeling to a bigger house versus, okay, maybe our lifestyle would be for a smaller house. Those are 2 pretty big changes, even though they may both have positive outcomes.
Right. Yeah, and that does help when they take the time, when they have hired, a real estate agent or a contractor that, knows them or wants to get to know them or has a good perception on their situation. There is a personal touch aspect to, somebody with 3 or 4 kids that wants to spend a certain amount of money, but be in the best school district and the most exclusive neighborhood, but they're looking at a 1,200-foot house for these 3 or 4 kids. You can't make someone's decision for them, But if they, they can get a lot more for their money in a different area, where they have a little bit more space.
They have 1,200 square foot houses in Medina?
No, I'm more, the West Seattle neighborhoods,
Sure.
some parts of Queen Anne where, you might be spending, $450,000 on a 1,200, 1,500 foot house where, you go a little bit out of those boundaries and you're doubling that square footage because they're probably going to need it and they're probably going to be miserable in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So
how do you help people make that choice? I mean, because people may fall in love with Queen Anne. They may fall in love with Magnolia.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make their decision for them, but it is about presenting all the different options for them. And then sometimes people just don't have an idea on value. I don't know if you've seen that show, Property Brothers, the Canadian magician. And
I'm
whatever.
married. HGTV is the one thing my wife and I can agree on.
Yeah. Well, that is fascinating. I don't think any of us really have the time to go show a bunch of houses that our clients can't afford, but there is an aspect to presentation and presenting the alternatives. If somebody wants a certain quality of home and a certain size of home, you could present those opportunities because there is a lot of creative financing options out there that can allow them to go in. And, we were talking about last time is going in and fixing up a house that has all the aspects of what they need. Maybe it's not in exactly the neighborhood they want. And it's not a brand new house. And once you get past the hurdle of them thinking that they got to manage the project and, shell out the cash and do all sorts of stuff. I mean, when you really present all the programs available to them, I think generally people get out of the idealistic thing about living in one neighborhood over the other once you show them the value and that they have the potential to make a professional decision, one that's exclusive, that they think might be exclusive to agents and builders out there, that, if you find the right professional, somebody can advocate for you and you can make a decision that's gonna make you money in the long run and be a better fit for your family.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it kind of comes down to is finding somebody who can help you understand that. On our show, we try to showcase some of the top professionals in the area. There's a big difference between somebody who just wants to sell you a house and somebody who wants to find you the right house.
Right.
And I mean, essentially, it almost puts blinders on you in some cases. Like, hey, look, these are not the right decisions. We can go look at them, but this isn't the right decision. Having the experience to bring that up.
Right. Yeah, and that relationship comes with time too, and there is a level of sacrifice where you do have to show them some situations, and it doesn't work out, and you continually ream that mantra, of just value, and trust us on the location, and it's that relationship develops over time.
Well, and I think another part of that relationship, which you can certainly expand on, is you talk about value, but there's also affordability.
Right.
And it's easy to start at one place in one neighborhood with the perfect house and go, man, we can afford that, but there goes our family vacations or whatever it is. And so there's a lot of different pieces of the puzzle.
And I don't think that's even so bad. That's how go back to our parents' generation. I mean, that's how they bought houses. They extended themselves to the highest possible point that they could leverage themselves, and they did forego vacations because the market was going up. And the school of thought back then was you get the absolute maximum amount that you can qualify for, and they didn't have this reckless mindset that a lot of us crazy kids do these days. The
difference in the 3 to 5 year plan versus the 30-year plan on a house.
But my parents weren't wanting to go out to expensive meals every weekend or go on vacations every year because they wanted to get planted somewhere, and there was some different values there. And I think there is an aspect of returning to some of that. When people's jobs are at stake and people aren't making as much money, family values and time becomes more valuable than anything else.
And when cruise ships are getting stuck in the middle of the ocean,
why would you want
to? What?
Yeah, well, if I could get a piece of that lobster, I think I'd spend a week out there covered in poop.
We have to go to break on that comment. Kalen, thanks so much for joining us. Stick around for a few minutes. We're going to get more of your opinions in just a few minutes. We'll be right back.